My 47F husband, 47M, asked for a separation on our 14th anniversary, while we were away in a foreign country to celebrate. While we weren't as close as we used to be, we almost never fought and generally enjoyed each other's company and families. We do not have any children. The night before our anniversary, he brought up he wasn't very happy in the relationship but didn't know why. The next morning, I asked to see his phone and he said no. He said I would find flirty messages with one or more other women on it. He had made some female friends through school and work and he said felt like there might be someone out there who was a better fit for him. I said I did not want to do a trial separation, as I don't believe you can work on something if you aren't living together. If he wanted to separate, it would be final. He understood but said it was something he had to do. After being away for only 2 days, we rebooked our flights home, flew home and he packed some belongings and left. 7 days later he asked to come home and we started marriage counseling. He had a lot of trouble admitting he had at least one emotional affair. The counseling was not helpful, he was defensive and not open to it. I suspect something physical happened with the other woman but I do not have any proof. He had deleted all his flirty texts, Snapchat, etc. so I could not see them. After 4 weeks of living together again and attending counseling sessions, he decided he no longer wanted to try to save the marriage and he was leaving. He packed up and left a few hours later. He stayed with a friend, found a new apartment and signed a 1-year lease. I was devastated and even had to take time off work to process what had happened and attend individual counseling. After 4 weeks, I started to feel a bit better. I went out for drinks with a group of 4 co-workers that live in my area and found I really enjoyed one of them, 42M, a lot. I had only met him over Zoom before this. We started seeing each other a couple times a week. Quite quickly it grew into a truly amazing, loving relationship. I've stayed in counseling throughout as it wasn't easy to process the sudden ending of my long-term marriage at the same time as beginning something new. It's been about 7 months now. My ex-husband eventually decided he wanted to try to save the marriage again, but I declined. He says I'm TA for starting a new relationship so quickly, within 6 weeks of him leaving. Our relationship was over as I can no longer trust him, and he has hurt me immensely. I do not want a relationship with someone I cannot trust. Am I TA for moving on? Comment 1. NTA. He literally said he felt there'd be a better woman for him somewhere. He's cheated on you probably multiple times, so he doesn't have the right to be mad at you for moving on when he couldn't even stay faithful to you. He can't try to get rid of you and want you again. Comment 2. NTA. What is it that they say on here? Play stupid games, get stupid prizes. I think your husband is pissed because it didn't turn out the way he thought it would, which in my experience it never does, that he would find a new amazing relationship, but instead you did. He screwed up and just needs to deal with the consequences. Maybe next time he won't take his relationship for granted and realize that for things to get better you have to make them better, instead of running away. Comment 3. If you were no longer close and you didn't fight because the passion was gone, then the relationship was over even before it was over. You were just respectful enough not to start anything new with someone else until the finality of the relationship was spoken aloud. My husband and I haven't been on any dates since I gave birth to our baby, 7 months. I had PPD, might still, and I was really isolated for a lot of my pregnancy and pretty much the entire time since the baby has been here. I'm alone for at least 16 hours a day, and when my husband is home, we have about a half hour to an hour before he goes to sleep for work, and during that time, he soaks up as much baby time as possible, which is understandable. We have sex, but that's just about as far as it goes, and some weeks he works 7 days a week. He literally busts his ass for us, and I do appreciate it so much. I really do. I'm just feeling really alone is all. So I communicated that to him a week ago, and he said he was going to make time for me and that he would borrow his buddy's boat and bring me out while his mom watched the baby for the day. I was stupid excited. So, the day before yesterday he came home from work early to bring me out shopping to grab stuff we needed, as he planned it for the next day, yesterday. We bought food, the essentials, and he told me to pick out a fishing pole because his plan was to bring me fishing for the entire day. I had been asking to go for 3 years, but we never had time. He doesn't even like fishing, so I asked if he was sure, and he specifically said, "Yes, this is for you. You need it, so I'm going to make it happen." I went to bed so excited. Could hardly sleep. We headed out around 8 a.m. the next day. At first everything was good. We launched the boat and start heading off. We are talking and laughing, which hasn't happened in so long. Around 9:30 he pulls off to the sandbar and I'm a little confused because you can't go fishing here. But that's when I noticed we were pulling up on 4 other boats. His friends, co-workers and their children. About 9 other people. I asked him what we were doing and he said, well, I told them we were going out on the boat and they wanted to join us. I asked for how long, because he told me he was bringing me fishing and this was a day for us, and he says, well, I figured I would bring you fishing before we leave for the day. I was immediately disappointed. For hours I sat in the same spot, watching my husband talk to everyone else or just sat along while he followed these guys to random locations, all beach, where you can't fish. Then they all start drinking. They offered me some, but I was just defeated at this point, maybe 1 to 2 p.m. I asked my husband to bring me back to shore. He said, wait, no, why? I didn't answer him. He then goes, no, babe, I will bring you fishing, we can leave right now. So I said, no thanks, I don't want to be here. He brought me back to shore in silence, where I already had someone waiting to pick me up. He asks why I am leaving with them and that he could drive me home and leave with me. I said, no, it's fine. Go hang out. You obviously need it. And left. He came back 40 minutes later and was irritated. He was apologizing, but at this point you just tell that he was angry, so it was more snappy and exasperated than anything. Says that he figured I would appreciate socializing, since I never do. I told him this was never about my lack of social life but my lack of spending time with him, and I had told him that when I had talked to him about it a week ago. So he did this for him, not me. So he said, yup, sorry I ducked up your day and left to go get the baby. When he came back he didn't say much of anything to me, and when he left for work this morning he just said, see you later. And for the record, he literally works on the water all day every day with the guys that he invited. So every single day is a boat day and hangout day for them, because they only have, at most, 4 jobs a day, and most of the time it's just him hanging out on a boat, waiting for a call. He often jokes that he gets a twofer because when he's working, it's social hour with all his good friends. Comment 1. NTA. You're 100% correct that he planned a day he would enjoy. He also did not tell you that other people would be there, yet he clearly had coordinated something with them, and that seems like an intentional deception. My guess is that he thought he could have his fun, then take you fishing for a little while at the end of the day after he'd done what he wanted, and he expected you to be grateful for it. It sounds like he does know he fucked up, and he does, at some level, understand that he did not prioritize you and he got called out for that. Comment 2. NTA. Let me guess, he is a people pleaser. He often feels the need to please people, and this would make a bunch of people happy. You are always lower on the list of people to please because of reasons that he can't articulate, but those reasons come down to the fact he feels the need to constantly earn respect/good feelings from pleasing others, and since he already has you, he no longer needs to please you.
My son and my nephew are both 6 years old and were placed in the same class at the start of this year. My sister has loved it for my nephew. He's autistic and has a lot of trouble socializing and with overstimulation. He's known to have meltdowns in class, and there were times my son was asked to stay with him while the class was evacuated. I had to step in and speak to the teacher as well as the principal about this because my son was terrified. They were seat friends all year, and they are the only 2 kids who never got a new seat friend. The teacher kept them together because she was worried my nephew would be bullied by other kids. But it was hard for my son. He's very shy and introverted, and sometimes my nephew getting upset would upset him. My son was also used to supply my nephew with pencils and other tools when my nephew would break them. My sister was so happy they were together. My son was miserable and I hated seeing him that way. My sister went to the school a month ago and requested they be kept together next grade. She mentioned it in passing during a family barbecue. I asked her why she did this and she told me it's working great for my nephew. I told her it wasn't working out great for my son, and while I love my nephew, I don't want my son to feel like he always has to be responsible for his cousin. She told me I should think of the greater good and encourage them to stay together. I went to the school afterward and requested the boys be placed in separate classrooms next grade. I told them my son did not deserve to have his education interrupted in order to help my nephew. I made it clear I was not okay with keeping them together. I also brought up again that I had not liked how they had handled things over the last year. The school agreed to separate them. We got notified of the classrooms and teachers last week. My sister was furious when she realized they were separated. She asked how I could do that to my nephew. I should think of the impact this will have on him. I told her I love my nephew, always have, but I need to look out for my son. She told me it will never be as bad for my son as it will be for my nephew, and we could have figured out a way to make it work better for both boys.
Comment 1. 1000% NTA. This is obviously something that requires approval and consent from both families. She cannot unilaterally request something like that, which you are against, and expect it to be honored. In fact, it sounds like the school did your son a major disservice this year, and it's a relief that they are willing to give him space from his cousin. She will have to get over it. This isn't for the greater good, it's for her son specifically, and it's sad and tone deaf that she's so comfortable letting another kid shoulder the full weight of the extra support and socialization her son needs to the detriment of that kid, your child, being her nephew. She should also care about the both of them being okay. I suspect she is somewhat desperate for a normal school experience for her son, which might feel out of reach, but your son is not responsible for being the solution to that problem. Comment 2. NTA. That school were essentially using your son as a glorified assistant for his cousin. What the school should be doing is assessing his needs and providing a classroom assistant for him that is fully trained on ASD. I say this as the mother of a child with ASD who advocated for the correct help to be in place for my child in school. My wife and I have been married just shy of 4 years, and she's almost 8 months pregnant with our first child. Originally we were Team Green, not finding out the gender, so wanted to have a boy and a girl name. But my wife got so frustrated that I wasn't happy to just let her use her top choices for names, Peter for a boy and Susan for a girl, and for suggesting the name Everly after my late sister's middle name, that she looked at the sex and found out we were having a boy, so we would only focus on boy names. She then decided she would give me a list of her top 10 boy names and I could choose one from that since I wanted to be involved. I admit this pissed me off. When we were dating, she complained all the time that her sister's husband never cared about the names of their children and gave no input at all, and how lazy and lacking he was as a father. I promised her back then that I'd always want to play a role in that stuff and look for names together. She said that was perfect. I also mentioned how I'd love to use Everly for a future daughter in some way to honor my sister, and she thought it was such a sweet idea. She said she was glad I was that way because she could never marry a guy like her sister's husband or have kids with someone like that. But now that we're actually in the baby naming stages, she has changed her mind and wants to have full say because she's the one carrying our child. She was so pissed off that she said my involvement could be picking from the names she loves most and nothing else. Her list was Peter, Lawrence, Francis, Samson, Vincent, Patrick, Chester, Jeffrey, Stanley, and Caleb. I chose Caleb, but she didn't like that and still wanted Peter. We had not agreed on a name. I told her I did not want Peter. But then when we went to her parents' house for a family dinner the other week, she told her family we had decided to name our son Peter. I was furious because we had not agreed to that. Her family were all so happy, and when we got a moment alone I accused her of being manipulative and trying to force my hand by making me the bad guy if I keep refusing. I told her she clearly never meant what she said about wanting a man who'd be involved, and she should have found herself a replica of her sister's husband because that's what she really wants. She told me too loudly that I was being a jerk and couldn't change my mind now, so her whole family were pissed off at me for trying to change Peter. Her sister's husband mocked me for being such a weak man. He said this because of how angry everyone else was at me and because I already took my wife's name in marriage and was now letting her name our kid. Which made me more angry at her and made her more angry at me for being angry. Then she told me I had no right to call her manipulative, and we've been tense since then. Comment 1. NTA. It's your child too, and frankly, unless Peter and Susan are family names, they're wild choices for a baby. Those are the people you call at corporate. That's me being petty, but let's move along. You threw in the last name thing at the end, and that broadened this spectrum of control. She made such a stink about her brother-in-law not giving a shit about anything, but you've taken her last name and she's taken full control over finding out the sale and the name of your child. Is control a regular issue in your relationship? If so, parenting together is going to be a wild ride. Comment 2. I am a woman, so nobody jump down my throat. Tell her that since you don't have any right to naming the child, that she gets to take care of it completely. That includes waking up all the time with it, feeding it, changing him, etc. She can also support him financially since she's the one that carried him. You're either a team or you're not a team. Comment 3. Baby names rules. Both parents must agree on the name. Your wife doesn't get to name the child just because she is carrying it. Her family doesn't get a say in the name either. The name is a decision that you both get to choose. She is being manipulative and mean.